Hey,
All right.
Denise.
Okay, so I have an echo. Okay, I think that's good. All righty. Okay, so we are on
Mm-hmm.
and ready. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just going to share this on um, my personal page. Um, so hopefully people will join in. And
And
then,
if I put share, it'll show up on my personal page too, right?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So I'm going to do that, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, let's see. So when you hit share
Right.
um, at the top, it shows where you're sharing it to. So you can share it. Does it say share on your timeline?
Yeah, it says write a post, copy link, share the group.
Okay. So if you, yeah, share, if you just share it, then on your timeline, that should work too.
Which is write a post. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
All right. So I'm sharing on mine.
Join us now. And
Okay. So I see. Hey, Chris. That's my brother watching. All right. So we're all good?
yeah.
All righty. So welcome everyone that is joining in tonight for this conversation. Um, and for those of you who will be watching this live later, welcome. So I'll start with introducing myself for those of you who may not know me. I am Denise Williams. I'm an educator, a holistic life coach, and wellness practitioner, and the founder of Akoma Wellness. And tonight I'm going to be talking about some things with Manifest Ra. So, Manifest, I'm going to actually allow you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the work that you do, and then we will get started.
Thank you so much, Denise. It's just a pleasure to be on this live platform with awesome woman like yourself doing this great empowerment work. Again, everyone, greetings. My name is Manifest Ra. I am an energy expert. That energy is for the inner God force, the God nature within each and every one of us as men and women. I do a lot of corporate presentations around energy work, corporate change, personal development, mindfulness. I've been on the Qigong path for over 19 years, teaching so many places, whether it's in corporations, agencies, schools, colleges, universities. And last but not least, which is very important for this conversation, I am the founder and organizer of the Sage Men program, which is an evolution in divine masculinity and sacred manhood. And so I'm very much looking forward to this insightful conversation with my good friend and counterpart, Denise, here. And let's get going.
Yes, thank you, Manifest, for that. So I'm just going to share a little bit about how we met, and then we can get started with this conversation. So a couple of years ago, I was in my own process working with a life coach, and at the same time, I was having some challenges in my marriage at the time, and as an option, we decided to work with a male and female coach, my husband at the time, to see if that would be helpful as we were trying to sort through the things that we were experiencing in our marriage. And so um, the coach that I was using already suggested Manifest as the coach to support us. And so we worked together And while we went through a period of separation, we continued working with our respective coaches. And then we also had an opportunity to work with the other coach during that time. And so I got an opportunity to work with Manifest in that capacity. And while the marriage did not last, we decided to end the marriage. It really began another level of healing and another type of process for me as it relates to working with men and understanding men, and really beginning to see the importance of having a male perspective, the male presence, especially when you're going through healing work, individual process. It was really helpful to have that insight from you, Manifest, during that time. And so this is what we're going to talk about tonight, is really the roles that we play as men and women in our process of healing and overall development, and when it's necessary, when is a great time to work together to do that. And so I want us to get started by asking a question to you, Manifest. And I have some notes here just to help keep me on track. So one of the questions that I wanted to ask is, how do men differ in the ways that they develop and go through a healing process than women?
Well, men naturally embrace their warrior when it comes to healing and transformation. It's not necessarily to just be open and vulnerable and transparent. And many of the men's groups, and Sage Men in particular, where I've worked with men, it can take us several rounds before we truly open up and talk about what's really on our heart. Oftentimes we'll resort to what's on our minds as opposed to our hearts, or what's in our heads, if you will. And we'll speak in third person. We'll talk about politics, Trump, you name it. We'll project, redirect, deflect, all those kinds of things. And, it takes oftentimes one man, maybe two, to open up, if you will, to, how can I say it, take one for the team and really get that process going. Where when I've observed some of the sister circles just that I've been invited to as a man, and just my sharing and engaging with women, you all tend to go in a lot easier, a lot deeper. Y'all will come in the first 10 minutes, you know what I mean, let it all out. This is what happened. Y'all give me a hug, group hug, that kind of thing. And with men, we might be there for the first 45 minutes, you know what I mean, working through the process. So it's like, let's resort to the tough guy, if you will, the warrior, which is an archetype of sacred manhood, divine masculine. But it can be, how can I say it, oftentimes used as a barrier, a buffer to, not go deep. And so with men, what I implore is that to see that vulnerability as that warrior archetype within you. You know what I mean? Don't look at the warrior as if I have everything all together and I'm only going to give you a little bit and I got to listen to everybody else in the room before I can go in. Come in open, understanding that this is an opportunity for you to heal and transform and to say what you mean and mean what you say, but see your vulnerability as a benefit, as a pro, as opposed to a con or a liability.
Yeah, that's so powerful, because I think that part of what I think would help us as men and women to relate to one another is really understanding our differences, understanding that we move very differently. And I think that oftentimes it takes conflict to happen for us to see that we really haven't learned about how different we are and how we can support one another, as we're going through our own individual challenges, and then as challenges come up,
right,
in a relationship. we often, it tends to happen when there's conflict and we don't have the tools, right? And when that happens, it can be very difficult to kind of get all of this while you're going through your challenges. And so I think it's really helpful for us to know the ways in which we're different, prior to even being in relationships with one another. And so what would you say that, the two of us kind of talked about this previously, the importance of, women doing their own individual work, men doing their own individual work, men working with other women, in circles, and men doing the same. So what would you say that men need from other men as they are growing and tending to their overall development and healing? What do they need from men? Why is it important for them to work with other men?
Okay, great. When you think of the animal kingdom, I just have to use that example. The men, the lion. You know what I'm saying? We beat our chest. We know at the core of our being, our essence is a king. Even if we haven't aligned with that and we're not living that. So there tends to be at times an adversarial kind of approach to other men coming into our space. Like, okay, let me hear what he has to say, and whatever he says, I need to, one up it, or those kinds of things. So, as men, we are most empowered oftentimes when we can actually let that go and embrace each other as the king. You know what I mean? As king among kings. And so that's a very important process where we don't see each other as enemies and adversaries. We see each other truly as brothers on the path of healing, transformation, and empowerment. So if men don't really experience that bonding, that camaraderie, that brotherhood, that sacred manhood, then it will be very challenging for them to speak among other men and actually, get feedback in terms of how can I improve my relationship? You know what I mean? How can I? Because that same energy of not being vulnerable and seeing competition will take place in whatever circles that they have, whether it's the barbershop, whether it's speaking to a cousin or a family member or somebody on the street. It's not really a supportive energy. And so the brotherhood circles, the sacred manhood circles, are an opportunity to go deeper, to truly go into the brotherhood where we see each other as men on a similar path. You know what I mean? I've gone through my traumas and dramas. So have you, every man in the room. I have my insecurities, my fears, just like every man in the room. And we can actually find that common ground and then build from there. And then from that energy, we can get true answers to our problems. You know what I mean? There'll be a brother in the corner over there who knows exactly what I'm going through because he went through that 10 years ago. And he sees me now as a friend, as a brother, as opposed to an enemy. And then we take that information and we build ourselves up so that we can actually be supportive of one another in our relationships, in our work, in our business endeavors, so forth and so on. So that's a very key component of moving beyond the adversary mentality and consciousness to with all kings among kings. And let's approach our conversation and our manifestation from that sacred manhood circle.
Yeah. And I think that, oftentimes because we are not developing those deeper connections, deeper relationships, men with men, even women with other women, as we're moving through life and experiencing challenges, experiencing moments when, things are just not working out the way that we thought, they would. We begin to see when we are searching for answers or, we're having problems in our relationships or even with our job, we haven't developed these relationships where we can go to one another and talk about these things. And so, I think it's beautiful. I think conflict, I think Tressa put this earlier, that conflict is good. I'm grateful for those moments and those periods where there's conflict and challenge, because that is what sometimes pushes us to be open, or to begin a conversation, or say, like, like, how do I do this? I don't think we were doing that enough prior to, and that takes time to develop. And from my experience, just being a woman, I see where there are now tons of spaces for women to go to, whether it's in the virtual space, or um, an event that you can go to. There's lots of things that women are doing with each other, and we're really beginning to even redefine what sisterhood looks like, and seeing the need for us to come together and support one another. And I haven't seen that happening so much with men. And knowing that there is, even though we operate differently, we're still human beings, going through life with human emotions, and have human needs. And so no matter how you guys go about doing that, I know that it's a necessary space. And so it's really important for us to have those spaces, for us to um, learn about who we are more deeply, because many of us kind of think there's one way to be a man and one way to be a woman, and that's part of what is bringing us to this place, or season in our life where we're having to redefine all of these things. And so you talked about kind of what the importance of men, working with men, and having those type of relationships, which I also agree for women. It's, if until you are really clear about who you are, and understanding the mirror and the reflection that you have when you are working with other women, there are things that just working by yourself you will not see until you are in the presence of other women. That it allows you to go a little deeper. It allows you to see areas where you have um, blockages, or resistance, or maybe areas where you have not embraced about yourself, that you see in another sister, and it really helps you to be able to know what areas still need healing for yourself. So what I'm noticing now, after years of kind of doing work with women as a participant and now as a coach, there gets to be a point where you've done a lot of coaching processes, you've gone to the goddess retreats, you've done all of those things, right? And there is another level of healing. For me, the marriage ended, right? And so you had to do all of that forgiveness work, and really figure out how you got here, and start taking responsibility for your life, and not focus so much on what the other person did or didn't do, but really focusing on what it is that you want. So you do all of that, and then there comes a time when I'm sure you desire to be in a relationship, right? Whether it is a platonic relationship or a romantic relationship, there comes a time where we have to interact with one another again, men and women, and really being able to apply these ideas, these principles that you've learned. It's one thing when you're talking about relating to men in a sister circle. It's another thing when you're actually with a man, right? And what, no matter what kind of relationship, whether it's your father or your brother, a friend, a partner, it's another thing when you actually have to work it out with them. And so I want us to talk about how, what do men need, would you say, from a woman? So let's say that you kind of have that support, that, your male support, you're able to kind of talk with them, but you notice that there is some challenges in your relationships with women, whether it's your mother, your sister, your partner, what would you say, what role do women play in, the overall development and in the healing process for men?
Well, we have to remember that every man came through the womb of a woman. And so even before he came through the womb, there was a process for 9+ months of him listening to, being in resonance with the heartbeat, the emotions, the thought processes, the you name it, with that sacred woman. And so the nurturing that a man receives from a woman is paramount for his own empowerment, for his own development. And so, when we go around the men circles and we talk and speak directly about our issues, our shortcomings, our fears, we get some support from that. That has some level of nurturing effect, but it is, how can I say it, minimal in comparison to what a man will receive from that divine feminine energy that he knows as his birthright, because that's how he was born. And so without receiving that, there will be a level of the warrior that man can develop, but how can I say it, being in tune with, in harmony with his own sacred yin, his own feminine component, that will be to healing experiences with women. So that's why it's so very important for integration to take place, even amongst these healing circles. Yes, the men can actually fellowship and bond and heal to some extent amongst themselves, but sooner rather than later, it's very important. It's vital for those men or a man in that healing circle to receive some healing energy from a woman, if you will. And so that will activate a whole nother level of his transformation. So the nurturing, the gentle touch, the how can I say it, the words of encouragement that he can only receive from his mother, if you will. He's not looking for his mother again, but every woman potentially is a man's mate, his wife, his sister, his daughter, his mother, all of those. And so that woman can play many of those, she can align with many of those archetypes in his development to help him deal with maybe what he didn't receive from his own mother, or challenges he had relative to his mother, so that he can actually heal and transcend and move forward.
Yes. That is a great point when you talk about just the mere fact that acknowledging that every man came from a woman, and there was a period of time when you were connected to your mother and needed her, for you to be born. And I think that ideally this connection or these relationships, or how we are to be with one another, ideally it would come from that relationship that we have with our mother, right? Or maybe our sister. But we know that in many cases that isn't the truth. We don't have a close connection, to a parent or to our siblings. And we may have even experienced a certain level of trauma, in those relationships. And or perhaps maybe your mother is no longer, here in the physical realm, or you didn't have sisters, right? And so you didn't really have that space to learn how to be with the opposite sex. And we continue to grow. We have, these strange ways that we relate to each other, like growing up in school, and the conditioning, that we've had of what it means when, a boy likes you, or when a girl likes you, and all this, the crazy, ness that we have experienced. And we go through life thinking, and hearing things from our friends that, they probably don't know either, right? And we become adults, and then we decide to enter into relationships. We begin to have children. We begin to get married, and we realize that we don't really know how to even be friends with someone of the opposite sex, right? Because a lot of times people are, the only time they're looking to be in relationship is when it's time to be intimate with someone, or to be, when marriage, is a factor. We don't really look at friendship or connection, or understanding what the energy of a man or the energy of a woman, what it provides for us. It is a crucial part of our own personal development and healing. And so, I think that what's beginning to happen is that, we're getting married, right? And then conflict arises, and it's not okay, for us to have other relationships with people of the opposite sex in a marriage, right? So where you may need a listening ear, depending on, the nature of your relationship, it becomes challenging, because we have a lot of rules or limitations that they're unless you are talking to your mom, right, which cannot always be the best, solution. Where do you go? Where do you go to learn? There's a value as a woman, hearing things from the male perspective, or understanding men in a different way from having those type of relationships, and vice versa. And so, I think it's really important now for us to begin to have these conversations and have these spaces where men and women can relate, and where we can learn how to be in relationship, and it not just be about sex or marriage, but it actually is for us to grow in our nature as a woman, and your nature as a man. And so one thing that I wanted to ask you is, what do you think are some key signs, that it's time for a man to seek support, whether in a men's group, and also to receive support as it relates to bettering their relationships with women? What are some signs that may be helpful for a brother to know that, this might be something that I might need to look into in order for me to be my best, to experience relationships at not just a deeper level, but just for them to be more rich, and enjoyable, as opposed to, something that you want to avoid and run away from.
Well, as spiritual beings going through this human experience, we all have embraced certain patterns in this lifetime, in this incarnation, that we kind of signed up for, and so we find ourselves experiencing family karma. I got approaching relationships or life patterns similarly to the way our moms and our dads and our uncles and our grandparents did. And we really take a good hard look, we're like, wow, okay, I'm repeating some things that, have been generational here. Yeah. And so I would say at any point is a good point for a man to bond and fellowship and build with other men who are on the path of healing and transformation and empowerment, regardless of where you are in your own development, because there's always more to learn. There's always more to teach, more to give, more to receive. And so I would say, every man, whether it's from a teaching position or a receiving position or a building posture, should be involved in some brotherhood circle, if you will. But to get more directly to your question, I think it's very important that men recognize their patterns. They go through what I call periods of the monk, where they just say, okay, I'm going to go within right now. You know, I'm going to spend some time with me, getting to know me in this phase of my life. What am I experiencing? What are the life lessons? What are the blessings? Where am I on my own path of development? And oftentimes, the only way we can truly experience that is if we kind of withdraw to some extent from others. And so, even if a man is in a relationship, doesn't necessarily mean he has to go off somewhere for 3 or 4 months away from his partner. But you know, communication, saying, listen, you know, I'm working through some things here. I do recognize there's some things that need to change relative to the patterns of my life, and you know, I'm going to need some space and some support in this process. So I think it's very important that every man periodically assess where he is. You know what I mean? Whether that's monthly, on a seasonal point, during the seasonal shifts, the solstices and equinoxes. Where am I? You know what I mean? And what do I need? What does my spirit need in this phase of my life? And does it require that I bond more with brothers? That I open up in transparency? That I come forward and reveal certain aspects of myself that's part of my shadow, if you will? And so self-assessment is so very important. One of my favorite mantras and affirmations is that life is an inside job. And so whatever is going on within our own minds, our own hearts, our own emotions and thought processes, that's what we're broadcasting out into the universe. And so we attract everything based off of that. So we can just, as men, just, you know, on a regular basis, just do our own self-assessment. We'll know when, you know what, you know, I need to really build with the brothers here. I need to share some things that I've been holding on to that maybe one other person I've been talking to that really is not the best sounding board. It's not the best advice, you know, if you will. Maybe that brother's, you know, going through his situation for a reason. I need to be around some brothers who are building their character, who have already been there and done that relative to where I need to grow and go. And so self-assessment, that's something that can be done daily, regularly, monthly, whenever. You know, there's certain times like moon cycles, and again, seasonal changes, I think, that are even more important for, okay, I'm going to a new moon here. You know what I mean? What do I need to do as a man to embrace my betterment over the next 28 days, so to speak?
Yeah, for sure. I think that I wanted us to talk a little bit about our joint experience together. Many of you who are watching may have seen the video from the Elevation Weekend experience with Reverend High Priestess Tema Azisarwa. The sage men were invited to join us during that process. And it was, I had never had an experience like that before. And, you know, I posted today where it took me going through a divorce to realize how much I really needed the support of women in my life in a way that I hadn't before. You know, I'd had girlfriends, but, you know, life was pretty, you know, great for us. You know, none of us had really, none of my friends had experienced anything like that. So it was very difficult amongst my friend circle to receive support when many of them didn't have, you know, that same experience. And I needed, luckily, you know, I was in a coaching process and had some other women who had experienced separation and divorce, and that, you know, I didn't feel alone. And while I was grateful to have that experience, it wasn't until, you know, having that and then also seeing that there was a need for the support of the men in my life, you know, it began to change conversations that I was having with my father and my brothers, and realizing how much I needed to hear from them, things that I hadn't heard before. You know, we just didn't talk about those things. things, you know, and where we didn't talk about or have like those difficult conversations. And so in just sharing what I was going through and them asking questions, I realized, you know, how the words and just the energy of these men in my life, how uh, imperative it was to me in my healing process. And so when we, I guess 2 months ago now, you know, almost, it was in August when we had the experience where the sage men came to really show us the power of the presence of the divine masculine. You know, it literally brought some women to their knees, you know, and it was such a powerful moment. And what was also special was that we had an opportunity where we, as you know, the women had an opportunity to pour into you guys. And so I wanted to hear from you kind of how you, you know, experience that moment of having the women, you know, hold space for you all and to show up for you, and the need for that as well.
Well, I'm so moved right now just by you reminding me of that. It's so very important that we pour into each other, if you will, that this is a reciprocal process and not a one-way street. That, you know, no one is just a giver and no one is just a taker. That's, you know, can have some level of benefit, but it's still remaining in a stagnant and I would even say dysfunctional pattern to a large extent. And so during that 2.5 hour ceremony, where the men, we talked about that prior to the ceremony, like, hey, you know, we're gonna be doing a lot here. You know, we did some qigong, we did some energy work, some meditation, some affirmations, all those things, calling the ancestors. And so we knew that engaging you all would bring certain things up. They would be very emotional relative to, you know, fathers, brothers, uncles, all those things, and that we would have to stay rooted in that moment to continue to assist you all to heal and move beyond that as much as possible in that moment. And so also that required that, you know, men, we were saying words of affirmation, we were sharing energy. And so there was a sense that, you know, some of the brothers even shared, hey, man, I was running on fumes. I said, wow, you know, it was, you know, hey, it was pretty intense. Yeah. And particularly that, I think it was about 16 brothers and maybe like 50 women there. So we were, you know, how can I say, we were circulating that energy around. And so it was very much needed. And I can't say that enough, that reciprocity was a foundation, a cornerstone of that event where you all, and if you remember, I made the point, I said, hey, you know, sisters, we want to continue to do this work around the world. You know, I mean, this is just a, you know, a window, small window. We're planning on doing this wherever we are, wherever women are around the world. And the only way we can continue to do that is that you all pour into us to help us fill our cups back up so we can continue to pour into you all. And I'm sure you all were going to do that anyway, but I know I was so worn out to some extent. So the brothers, I didn't have to wait on you all. I actually just, you know, made a statement. And so for you all to just pour into us and to really speak words of love, affirmation, empowerment, pray over us, just, you know, everything that you all did, share energy, many Reiki sessions, it was so moving, you know, because it reminded all of us, everyone there, that this healing process wasn't just about women healing. It was about women and men healing. And the fact that we were the primary channels for that healing, we were also being healed as men.
Yes.
Every man comes through, again, that vessel, that channel known as the sacred woman and her womb. So the fact that we were helping you all heal, it was a reciprocal process just within itself, but when you are from a more intentional place of being, brought that love and light and pouring in, that made all the difference. So I just want to remind everyone watching that healing is a reciprocal process. It's an intentional process. And so when you are on the receiving end of someone pouring into you, it is it is vital that, however you can give to them. You might not have in that capacity the same amount of energy, of life force to reciprocate in that same manner. But there's some words of love. There's some words of gratitude, some words of appreciation, a hug. However you can do it in that moment is very important.
Yes. And I don't think that people realize how powerful just being able to even look someone in the eye, look at as a woman, stare in the eyes of another man that I don't know, right? And to the level of vulnerability, that was there, and having to choose to surrender, in the moment, and realize that it's safe for us to show up for each other in that way. And I think that's one of the things that was so powerful for me, is because I don't think on both sides we necessarily always feel safe with one another, just because of all of the things that are happening, in the world. And I don't think that we have to wait until we are in a romantic relationship to be able to show up for one another in that way. And so, like you said, the words of encouragement and affirmations, and just being able to your presence alone. I remember one of the most powerful moments is when you guys were just sending, loving energy. I could feel it, in my heart space. And I think that, we are, especially, as people of color, African Americans in particular, um, you know, even working with energy work and understanding, it's becoming less taboo and strange, and people are more open to it. And I'm so um, uh, just grateful to be in a time where we're able to do this kind of work with each other, so that we can really live at our best, and to have deeper and richer relationships. And I think that, one of the biggest takeaways for me, other than, what we received as women, is that men need this as well. I think that times are shifting right now, where women are doing a lot of work on themselves, and finding the support from one another. And there comes a point where the way in which we have behaved with men, we are going to have to take account of for and take responsibility that um, I do see a lot of men who are ready and willing to do their own work. And what does that mean for us as women? We have done enough years of bashing men, and talking about what, what they haven't done, and what they're, and all, that is wrong, right? And so for me, it's really important, as a healer, and as someone who holds space for people, to create that type of space for men, in a way that can support them in their healing. And so, we've talked some about this new program, that I am creating, to host, to do that, to hold space for men. And I know that for some people that may be strange, but I have been able to experience on both sides the power of just having that presence of a woman, with men, and how that nurturing energy, that love of the divine feminine, how when a man actually feels safe, that it's so necessary for them to be witnessed and heard, and supported, not only by their brothers but by women, and oftentimes men don't have that, in their lives, and so wanting to create an opportunity for them to be able to share and have conversations with each other and have the loving presence and that nurturing energy of a woman there. And so I'm really glad that we, have been able to connect and talk. And for those of you who are watching, um, I will also be working, with Manifest as I do, this 6-week program with men. And I actually invited him to come on during one of the weeks to interact with the men and to also offer them, additional resources, and have access to working with him and working with the Sage men, because that's so important for them to have. But I'm really looking forward to all that will come from this program that is being launched on next week on the 7th. And so in the comment section, I'm going to include more information about the program. It's called The Light of the Sun. It'll be a 6-week process, and really each week there'll be a different topic for us to discuss, and really just giving men an opportunity to show up and to begin to share things that maybe for a long time they haven't been able to share, or maybe didn't have the space to share. And what I really, would love is for at the end of the 6-week process, for these men that have already signed up to begin to create their own spaces with other men and continue the conversation going, continue those conversations and keep them going. And so I'm really looking forward to it. And I want to thank you, Manifest, for just being so open. And it was really important for me to even have your support and the encouraging words that you gave me when I shared with you that, my interest in doing a project like this, because truth is, I spoke with other men and they did not have great things to say about it, and it made me a little hesitant of wanting to move forward. But, I'm very clear about the work that I'm here to do. And I know that I'm already doing work with women, and I know that that I'm also called to create these spaces for men as well, and to be able to facilitate the healing that needs to take place between, both of us. And so I'm really looking forward to it. And I think it'll be a learning and growing experience for me as well as the men that will be a part. And so I want to thank you for coming on tonight and give you an opportunity to share any last words or thoughts, and then also share how people can be in contact with you if they want more information on how to work with you.
Thank you so much, Denise, first and foremost, for initiating this platform, for having the courage to move in this direction, and even moving beyond some of the naysayers, some of the critics, some of the people who maybe doubted your approach. And so when you shared it with me, I automatically, very quickly, I was able to see the vision. I was able to see where you're going with this and the benefits of you hosting this, And so as men, we know primarily we need examples from other men, whether it's our fathers, uncles, or some man, some, like I said, model of manhood for us to emulate that. So that's not what you are doing here. Yeah, I'm clear on that.
Yeah.
What you have stated from the very beginning is that you are very excited about facilitating that nurturing component, and that men can oftentimes only receive from a woman, whether that's their mothers, their wives, their, whatever platonic relationship that they can have with a woman. And so you have, obviously you invite, a man like myself who's been on the path of doing the sacred manhood work to help provide some guidance, maybe some structure with certain areas that obviously, are just beyond, your scope. So, I see the vision. I'm excited about working with you. It's very much needed. And I would say anybody watching out there, understand that healing and transformation is an inside job. Life is an inside job, and we all need healing and transformation. So, don't have any reservations about seeking help from men's circles, from women's circles, and also integrating when necessary. Having women come and enhance men's circles, having men come to enhance women's circles. Integration is very important. That's how we all got here. We didn't all get here by staying exclusively in our manhood and womanhood circles. So to think that that's the end all, the be all to the healing process is a lack of awareness. We need the integration because oftentimes the issues that we are walking around with has to do with, from a man's standpoint, something that we experience with a woman. From a woman's standpoint, something that you experience with a man in your childhood, something in your formative years, your early relationship. So if that integration model process is never really brought into the picture, then we walk around with these titles and these certifications, but we're still these wounded beings, if you will. And now we posture as if we got it all together, but we're still very much a work in progress and that kind of thing. So I would say this is an opportunity for us to heal, to transform, whether you're directly in the program or you're going to be watching or you're just inspired by the words tonight. Do your own self-assessment and ask those questions within yourself on what you need to do to change the narrative within your own mind, your own spirit, your own heart, to break away from patterns that no longer serve you, to embrace the highest possibilities within yourself. And when you ask those questions within, the universe that is within each and every one of us will provide those answers.
Absolutely.
Whether that is a program like you're doing, a program like the Sage Men or wherever, or somebody initiates their own program, they're going to be moved to do the healing and transformation work. So I'm excited. And let's get to it.
Yes. And how can people contact you, Manifest?
Oh, thank you so much, Denise. They can reach me, manifestraw.com. Again, manifestraw.com. They can also reach me at thesagemen.com, thesagemen.com. The number, if they need to reach out, is 202-746-4537, 202-746-4537. And the simple email address is manifest.raw@gmail.com. manifest.raw@gmail.com. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to this process of healing and empowerment.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Manifest. Tonight was beautiful. And look forward to working with you and really just being able to see what comes from this work that we're both doing. And so again, if this video, anything that you heard resonated with you, I'm going to encourage you to share this video on your timeline so that we can continue these conversations. And if anyone is interested in participating, any men that are watching and participating in the Light of the Sun, again, I'm going to include in the comment section the link so you can get more information and you can contact me or any of the women that are watching. If you have any men in your life that you love that you think could benefit, you could also share this information with them so that they can decide if this is something that they would like to be a part of. And if you are not following Akoma Wellness, make sure that you go to the Akoma Wellness page and follow us there for more information. Also, you can go to akomawellness.com or you can reach out to me personally on my personal page. Thank you so much, Manifest. I hope that we can continue having more conversations like this. I think this is just the beginning.
Thank you so much. And I'm also on Facebook as well, and many handles, Manifest Raw, of course, and you go to the Sage Men group. So I'm excited, Denise, and let's do the healing work.
All right. Thank you so much, and have a great night. Thank you, everybody that's watching.
Peace.
Good night.